Gary, it's been a long time since you were playing in the rock and roll band and all that, and in the meantime, you've been probably busier than ever trying to get these hit records together. What have you been doing all this time?
Working in here about 18 hours a day for starters. Just keeping at it. Just being busy.
I suppose the name Damon Productions is the name that people know of this complex. And what exactly does Damon do? I know they do a lot of things.
Right. Well, Damon is what we like to think of as sort of a total entity. We're publishing, we're studio facilities, and we hope to have, eventually the best technical facility in Western Canada. The publishing is very big with us, and production of records. We have two labels, Damon for the country work that we do, and Mustard for the contemporary artists, the rock and roll, and the middle-of-the-road singers and things like that. We're just a whole big ball of wax.
A lot of people think that to make hit records, that means you got to be out there singing the songs and everything, but you've been quite active in doing just that from a behind-the-scenes standpoint. You're more involved as a writer these days, would you say?
Well, it's sort of a total entity. I don't get a lot, the chances to write like I used to when I was just playing, but you keep your hand at it, and I write one tune a year. That's about what it works out to. A lot of jingles in between, a lot of records produced between that.
A lot of people think to make hit records you have to have some magic formula. Now, if somebody walks through your front door that writes good and sings good, what can Damon actually do to near that person to musical success?
Well, of course, it always, it comes down to how commercial the material is, and that's the first thing we look at, if they're writers. Whether we can do anything with it. If we don't really feel we can, then we're going to pass on it or recommend some other publisher that would probably do something. But in most cases, we find the people that are writing are good singers and, have the potential to be good performers. And at that point, we select their very best efforts and begin production. We just start recording. It's you're starting with the raw product, and you hopefully end up with the saleable, commodity.
The tunes that you're performing here tonight will probably be familiar to our audience, but by other people. And I'd like to know who these people are that are recording your songs.
The first tune on the show was then called Talk It Over, and a young lady, bilingual, I might add, Gabrielle Bugeaud, will be coming out within the week in English Canada, the English version, and in French Canada, the French-Canadian version, or the French version, rather. Sean Dunphy, an Irishman, recorded the second tune. That's Another Point for You, and that I'm expecting that out very shortly. And three people have recorded back home. Wayne Vold is one of the people. Art and Carol Sherman did a version of it. And I guess there's only two people, pardon me, that have recorded that. And the last two, that's my claim to fame. That's my two tunes that I decided to put out under a pseudonym. It's be out under the name of Gary Damon. That's to put everybody on. And besides, it also avoids threatening letters and things like that.
You're primarily concerned with producing these songs for other artists, and I wonder if you get the same self-satisfaction out of watching that tune develop for someone else that you would get out of performing it yourself.
I would prefer other people to do my songs. I think that's what a songwriter looks for. If he doesn't consider himself a performer, and I don't, I'm a songwriter. You kind of write a tune with somebody in mind. It could be a fairly broad area. If it's country, you might be looking at several different people doing it. But when you're working with it, I think you can be more objective producing it for somebody else as opposed to yourself. You can be much more critical. I know my own faults as a result. Say that's my best effort. But with somebody else, you push them a little harder and you get a little bit more out of it. I'm sure that's the best route to go for me, anyways, on tunes that I write. I'd prefer somebody else to record them.
Getting away from the production-oriented question, I'd like to know about Gary McDonall as a writer. Where and how are you inspired, and where is the time that you actually get to sit down and write your own tunes?
As I'm walking past the piano and the phone doesn't ring, really, there's no set time. Many cases I'll write the lyrics down, like I wrote Back Home, driving back from Calgary back home. And I wanted it to be country, so I wrote it in that vein, and I think it's pretty straight on. It's talking about a guy coming home to die, basically, and because he has nothing else left to live for, and if he had to die someplace, he'd prefer to die at home. It's very morbid, but I mean, there's sort of a positive side to it. But it's funny. I guess you have to call it inspiration. You probably have the nurturing of a song and the nurturing of a song in your head, but you never have a chance to put it together. You just walk to the piano one day, and in 5 minutes it's written. That's the way it works for me, anyways. I don't write a lot, but when I write something, it's usually finished and complete. And hopefully, I get it recorded within that same year too.
Well, you've got a whale of a recording studio, which, as I mentioned, has come a long way from back in the old days, and it appears from someone who walks into Damon Studio that you've got a very successful operation here. And let's assume that it is, what then is next on the list? Where do you want to go from here?
Into film mix, which we are proceeding to do. We're going to be able to process 60 millimeter and 35 millimeter eventually. We're looking at going into that. Plus, we'd like very much to be a 24-track studio and have 2 studios. And we're looking at that perhaps in the spring, if things go well. That's what we're sort of shooting for. We'd like to have 2 facilities, in other words.
We've covered a lot of the technical end of this business, Gary, and I wonder if you had one area that you could concentrate on that satisfies you most, what would that be?
Well, I'd have to say it'd be A&R. I really like hearing those new tunes and working with people, selecting those tunes. That's also sort of involves the publishing side. Eventually, that's what I'd like to do only. I'd like to be able to go out and find that talent and say, okay, we have some tunes for you, and let's go in the studio and cut them, and hopefully eventually create some jobs for some bright young producers and things like that. That's probably the ultimate, right now we do it all, eh? But hopefully in the future, get a few breaks, we're going to employ some more people here and give everybody a chance at this, with control. Of course, business and all.